Hi, my name is Steve Kost. I'd like to thank the Champaign Park District and the Springer Cultural Center for giving me an opportunity to share my artwork in a virtual show. It's a very special occasion for me to actually be able to travel down there and share some stuff. It's very meaningful work for me, and I look forward to describing each of the pieces that I brought. I like using reclaimed materials into my artwork and found objects. I have a few junkyards that I work with that are sponsors, and I go there to collect materials. And I just love keeping this stuff out of the landfills. I like reusing everyday objects that people can identify in my artwork. This piece is made up from an old drill bit that was bent and discarded that I found, and some flat cut nails that would be used to pound into concrete. This is a very special piece to me. It's called Steelhead, and I won first place nationally in the Veterans Creative Arts Festival in 2019 for using art as therapy for PTSD. And when I create this art, it really does give me focus, and it calms me down and gives me something to concentrate on, which I need a lot. And it's very therapeutic for me, and I'm very happy to be here sharing it with you today. This piece is special. We've got a couple of railroad spikes that are in here, some cutlery from discarded silverware that I found in thrift shops and places. We've even got some colander pieces in here. A lot of the gears and stuff that I have, I dismantle typewriters and sewing machines and any kind of thing where I know that there's some valuable gears in there that I could use. I like to take things apart and see how they work, and then I like to take those pieces and make some new artwork out of them. This piece is called The Hunger, and I originally started with this head, which I thought when I picked it up, it looked exactly like a vulture. So I started to think about creating wings and creating structure of wings. Some of the details on this, using found objects, I was able to use Allen wrenches for the feet and a large spring out of a car for the body here. The belly is left intentionally empty to indicate how hungry he's always looking for something to eat, as nature would have him do. This piece is called Frazzled. It's something that I started to work on right when the lockdown happened for the pandemic. I was really had a lot of excess energy, wasn't sure what was going to happen. So I was in my workshop working on this, and I remember just a feeling of general anxiety in my family and in my community. So I started to think about how to represent that in a piece. And that's why I decided to call this Frazzled. I use steel wool here to replicate the goat's fur. And I also use these are pieces from a shelf bracket to make the horns. This piece is called Yellow Jacket, and in making this, I used some pieces from a dismantled typewriter. When I first started making artwork, it wasn't with the intention of making artwork. I started dismantling machinery and seeing how things work. And I had bins of this stuff inside of my workshop or my house. And every time I took one of these typewriters apart, I would find these keys. And I thought they looked really like insect legs. So I wanted to set out to make an insect utilizing these. Here, I used typewriter keys from a dismantled typewriter to make legs. We have Allen wrenches for the antenna. I got some gears here from a garage door opener, and this is the finial off the end of a curtain rod. And of course, you can see there's cutlery here, butter knives. This is a very special piece to me also. This is called Texas-sized Mosquito, and it's traveled around the country at different veterans art shows. I really like this piece and the pieces that it's made from because I used dismantled typewriter keys again, and I also used a folding teaspoon. Here's butter knives for the wings, and there's some industrial chain here. This piece is called Bliss, and I wanted to make an insect that was really gross, and I thought of a fly immediately. I used typewriter keys again for the legs. I have a wind-up can opener here, so that looks like it could be wound up. And I really like reusing saw blades. I have a lot of friends that donate saw blades to me for use in my artwork, and I just love repurposing things and giving them a new lease on life. When I got done with this piece, I used a clear coating to lay it on really thick and get the look where it was kind of dripping slime. Kind of gross, but kind of cool at the same time. This piece is one of my first that I created, and it was something that I made in my workshop. I used my own hand for a model for this one. So this has been in music videos, and it's very special to me because it is the dimension of my hands. It's got some industrial gears that I found. We have some bolts here, spigot to turn on water. I got a very special ring for someone that I lost that I keep as a memento on this piece. And I just love that it looks about the same size as my hand. This piece is called The End of the Line, and it is a little bit of a darker subject matter. This is for veteran suicide awareness. This was part of a show at Hines VA Hospital in Chicago, and it is to raise awareness of the 22 suicides a day that we face as veterans. This piece is called Lovebird. I knew when I found this neck, which was actually an old chisel that somebody had discarded, and the way that I structured this face, I knew it was going to be a bird, and then I realized it could be a peacock. I used some of these shipping container or tags that somebody had donated to me, and I thought of this long flowing tail. There's some motor parts in here and some clutch plates and different parts of silverware. There's typewriter keys for the toes, and this, when I made this piece, I wanted to have things that could be put out in a garden and would have some movement. So I started using motion in my work, and I like the way that it kind of brought this guy to life. This piece is called the PTSD Skull, and it's a very personal one to me. And I created this after being woken from nightmares regarding my combat experience, and that's something I know a lot of other veterans can identify with. This skull is made up from the cap from a compressed air bottle, and I hand cut all these teeth, and I use a bicycle sprocket for the head here. But the important thing is, inside of here I put a bunch of machinery and gears to be kind of representative of the brain. And sometimes as soldiers or in the military, we're trained to do things where it's second nature. So I wanted to represent that with the pieces that I put inside of there, kind of a robotic response. This piece is called Bottom Feeder, and it is representative of my struggles with PTSD and some of the hard external shell that we put up to hide our feelings. Here I used industrial chain, some large sprockets, and some discarded channel locks for the pincher. I also included one of my dog tags here where he's eating it. This piece is called the Clockwork Whale. When I built this, I used pieces from KitchenAid mixers. I had a person who donated a big batch of KitchenAid mixers, and I wanted to harvest all the gears out of them to make this. I really enjoy making a lot of sea creatures, and the whale was something that was a personal challenge for me to make. After I made it, I decided to hang it from this spring so that it would give a sense of movement when it was on display. This piece is called The Wanderer, and I made this piece at a time when I was walking a lot to collect my thoughts and actually come up with new ideas for my artwork. This is the first time I attempted to make anything in a human form. So I used some Allen wrench keys here, some cotter pins, and some industrial parts, including a bearing. And I like the idea of having this gear. It kind of represented motion, perpetual motion for me. This guy will be walking for a long time, covering the same ground and not even stopping. On Guard uses a lot of reclaimed materials. So I have a wrench in here, an adjustable crescent wrench. There's a brake pad, Lionel train track, there's a pair of scissors or shears. A lot of people donate candle holders and wall sconces to me, so I like to use the swirls in a lot of my work. So you'll see a lot of my pieces actually incorporate some of those that I've dismantled and used. Here, we've got a shoe stretcher for the head. This piece is called Undertow, and once again I used some industrial chain that I found, and I made some threaded rods to represent the movement and the current of the ocean, where the seahorses always face into the current as they hold themselves still. We've got some cotter pins for a head, and I really like to give expression, give some character with the faces, so I concentrate on making the eyes and the face look lively. These two pieces go together. The large one's called Snoopy, and the small one's called Woodstock. I knew immediately when I started to make this Woodstock that the head just reminded me of Charles Schultz character, so I made something else to go along with it as a companion piece. Here with this larger piece, I used a lot more small parts to make it all up. We've got more dismantled typewriter pieces in here, a foundry hook for the tail, a bicycle sprocket, and There's even a wine marker here that I found in one of my buckets that said Serenity. And I thought to myself, that is really representative of a seahorse and their strength. This piece is called Mechadillo. And I entered this in the 2020 National Veterans Creative Arts Festival this year. It features a movable tail, and it's segmented. And I have never seen an armadillo in real life other than in movies. But when I started to create this piece, I started to think of movement and the hard shell. And this all started with this front piece. His head is actually a pivoting piece off of an industrial door. And as soon as I found that piece and held it up, I knew immediately it looked like an armadillo's face. Inside of here, we've got some spark plugs and different pieces of machinery to give it the impression that you could actually wind this thing up and watch it walk away. This piece is called the Android Dream. It's made from an industrial steam trap that when I found it, I thought to myself how much it looked like a face. So I made sure that it was open just a little bit, and I used a couple of pieces for a nose and eyes in here. I think this guy's got a lot of character and a lot of personality. A lot of my work is of subjects of the animal kingdom, and it's something that comes very natural to me. I had a curiosity as a child. I wanted to work in a zoo. I wanted to be around these animals, and that's something that stuck with me my entire life. So a lot of times when I create some of these pieces, I may not actually have seen a whale in person. I may not have seen a peacock in person, but I have a pretty good idea of what I'm looking for in my mind. So I can use these different reclaimed materials to make it. A lot of times I'll have an idea that I want to build something, but I just don't have the right pieces for it. And on the other hand, sometimes there's pieces that I pick up and I know immediately that's going to be a bird's face or perhaps a foot. I do keep a couple of journals and sketchbooks in different spaces in my house and my workshop, because when an idea comes to me, I want to make sure I put it down right away. 2020 has been a very challenging year for artists. It's been a challenging year for me, and I've got a lot of material for new projects that I'm going to be working on in the future. In the future, I'm hoping to start doing large-scale outdoor sculpture and public art. It's something that I really am looking forward to doing when the opportunity comes.